If the Philadelphia Eagles can't move up to get what Howie Roseman covets, which is what I told you guys last night, he covets Jalen Carter, but it takes two to tango. So if you can't move up, you can't trade back, right? Because just no one wants to move up for what's available to the quarterbacks at the 10th overall pick. If you're stuck in no man's land, you can't go forward, you can't go backwards, you got to make a pick. I want to talk about one of the options today that would be on the board because this is a very high character player. This is a young man that has a lot of leadership qualities. This is someone that we have heard outright that Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles front office absolutely loves this guy from a personal standpoint. But he's a complex evaluation because he's super athletically gifted. But you got to be creative with this young man and you got to know how to use him. All right, y'all, without further ado, we are talking about the University of Georgia. Off-ball stack linebacker / on-ball rush edge, if you will. We're talking Nolan Smith, guys. All right, y'all, let's get it. What's up, Cerebral football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. As I said, guys, Nolan Smith is kind of a difficult one because I think the beauty in Nolan Smith is the versatility. It's the fact that Nolan Smith can play so many roles if you're creative. If you don't limit the creativity of your defense, if you have a mind who realizes what Nolan Smith is, which is, we talk about Bijan Robinson being an offensive weapon, this is a defensive weapon. You can do a lot. And right from the jump, let's just get into like what is going to turn everyone's heads when they look at Nolan Smith. Outside of the personal conduct and just being an excellent young man and like having really, really high character grades and being a really, really sound leader for that Georgia defense. What's going to turn your heads is what he did at the combine. And you could take a 4.39 40, and I can tell you right now, guys, don't pay attention to full 40s. It's not that they don't have value. It's just that they're highly overrated. The game is just not often played up and above 20 yards. This is just very rare. However, when you look at explosive traits, boy, he gives you the explosive traits, doesn't he? A 1.52-10 split on that 4.39 40. A 41.5-inch vertical to go with a 128-inch broad jump. Man, if you want athleticism, he's got it. I really wish I knew the lateral movement. I really wish he had tested there and I could see the numbers there just because if he could demonstrate to you the lateral movement abilities I think this young man has, boy, you're talking about a guy that gives you a lot of flexibility in how you play him. And that's going to be step one to like what you do with Nolan Smith, which is, okay, if you want to play him in the Hassan Reddick role, you got some questions here, right? You got some things you got to answer, if you will. Let's get into that, guys. He is 6'2" and 238 pounds at his weigh-in. I would probably say he plays roughly between 230 and 240 some pounds, guys. I mean, the thing is like what you weigh in at the beginning of the year, anyone who's ever played football at a certain level, it's really hard to keep your weight up through the duration of that time, to be quite fair. So what you start at is not necessarily what your playing weight will be and what it will end at, if you will. He has a 9-inch hand size, which goes along with the smaller, somewhat weight, is going to cause some concerns, right? I mean, you're talking pretty close to the bottom 80% of the league at that position group in terms of hand size. If you're, to me, not the hugest of deals, guys. I'm just going to be honest. I think that there are far worse fates than having a smaller hand as a defensive lineman, but you can question his ability to grab, stack, and move and, hold up in terms of run play. He has a 32.625-inch arm reach, though, which does rank in the upper half at the position group. And on top of that, he has an 81-inch wingspan. When you take that, arm reach, which is in the upper half, and then you take that 81-inch wingspan, which is in the upper 10%, it's a 93 percentile, guys. You're talking about a guy that may not be the heaviest guy on the edge, right? He may not have the largest hands that plays on the edge. He's not a 10 and a quarter, 10 and a half inch hand size guy out there. But what he is a longer framed body than what you would think, which allows him to play with better leverage versus the run than what I think he's often given credit for. And this is a complex evaluation, as I stated from the beginning, guys, because number one, if you are drafting a guy like Nolan Smith, you better have an answer for how are you playing him on early down run situations. You have to have an answer for that. And the first thing I will say is that just because he's 240, 235 poundish doesn't preclude him, doesn't exempt him from having to play run defense or saying that he can't play run defense, if you will. I mean, look, the guy only had 69 run defense snaps on the season last year. But what I can tell you is in those 69 snaps, he had 10 defensive stops, which was a 14.9% stop rate, which is incredibly high. And this is the statistic that I think it kind of goes, it makes you go, not what I would have thought, if I'm going to be honest here, guys. His average depth of tackle is AVDT. It's 0.3 yards. Yeah, guys, he's making plays in that, what we call the impactful play range, right? Anything under 3 yards and behind the line of scrimmage, that's where Nolan Smith was playing at in run defense. Now, 69 snaps. Let's not lose context of 69 snaps. But that's a way better marker than I thought I was going to see when I got down to the advanced analytics here. In terms of pass rush snaps, this is another kind of, tough evaluation because we're making projections here based upon athleticism, right? On the fact that you got a guy over here with a 1.52-10 split and a 41.5-inch vertical and 128 broad jump lining up on an offensive tackle, lining up on a tight end, lining up on a running back trying to pick him up in the backfield. You know what I mean? Like, you got a guy definitely who can do some damage to you if you're not careful, because this is a type of athlete you don't normally see out there. With that said, he only had 119 pass rush snaps on the season as well. And I think when you look at this, you say 69 run defense snaps, 119 pass rush snaps, like what went on. Remember, he had a torn pec muscle, which another complication since the Nakobe Dean relation here and the torn pec muscle and kind of what happened there with Nakobe Dean. But Nolan Smith also suffered a torn pec on the season, and he actually, after the end of October, he was down for the rest of the year pretty much. I did think he made a late return back into the rotation again, but pretty much it was at the end of the season. It really didn't do too much in terms of impacting the analytics behind his play. In those 119 pass rush situations, here's the thing when we talk about projections, the projections that, man, he could be pretty impactful. The projection is he had a 25.5% win rate, which is incredibly high. It's like the 9th highest win rate, I'm pretty sure, in all NCAA football. However, they only counted for 2 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. So we're talking about, it's impactful plays. It's only 119 snaps, and we're talking about 7 times where he's either gotten to the quarterback and put him on his backside or got to the quarterback in a timely manner to where he didn't cause a penalty, but he was able to disrupt the quarterback in a way that was physical. It was more than just knocking him off his spot, a pressure, if you will. So to me, Nolan Smith is interesting because I think beauty is always in the eye of the beholder, but if you're stuck at that 10 range because you can't trade up, you can't trade back, and let's be real, no matter who you pick in that spot at 10, because this draft is deep, but it is not full of blue chips, you're probably overdrafting somebody. Let's just be real about that situation. You can make an argument that no matter who you pick at 10, it's probably an overdraft in other draft classes. That doesn't make this draft class bad. It just means it doesn't have that blue chip presence that other classes normally have. There's not as many of those dudes in this one. So, what I'll say here is, show me creativity with a player like this, and you could have something exceptional. Do you have the foresight to take a guy like Milton Williams and plug him as a 4-eye and a 5, and then you have a guy like Nolan Smith playing outside of him as an overhang? Josh Sweat, same kind of concept, same kind of situation you could do there, right? How about the fact that Nolan Smith is athletic enough to clearly play in a true 34 front on those snaps where you're playing more of a traditional 34 front? He can be a jack linebacker. He can absolutely play that role. How about the fact that in early down situations, to be quite honest about this young man, he can play off-ball and stacked as a linebacker, an off-ball stacked linebacker. He absolutely has the athleticism to do it, and there's some organizations that believe that's what he is. Clearly, he can play as an on-ball overhang, as we already discussed when we talked about kicking guys inside and then playing him outside of them. Like, he can clearly play on-ball as an overhang in any front, to be real. And then there's the going back to the college, going back to why Jeremy Pruitt and these guys invented this system, this adaptation they did with Nick Saban's scheme when he was in Alabama. Jeremy Pruitt came up with his spread defensive concept. It's basically defending these spread, systems, to where they use things like the money backer and the star. I think he can play the star role. I definitely think that if you have a creative enough defensive coordinator, what you got here isn't just a traditional weapon, but it is a weapon. This is a unique guy. This is a unique player, but you better know how to use them, or else this could be a very complex and very difficult, not only evaluation, but utilization of the player. I know that people really, really like Sean Desai a lot. People speak very highly of Sean Desai and say this is one of the really smart football minds out there. He's a little inexperienced. He at least has 1 year of actual play calling experience with Chicago, but he's still, generally speaking, a fairly inexperienced guy, but he's got ideas and he's got the forward thinking stuff. That's what we're told. Well, Nolan Smith would be a chance for you to prove that thesis. Nolan Smith is your project. This is the guy that, if you make that selection, get creative with that selection. Let this be more than just a rotational pass rusher. Yeah, he can give you that. He can come in and be a rotational pass rusher, so that way you have that nice, clean rotation on the outside edge rushing spots. But you need to do more than that with Nolan Smith, man. He needs to be a little bit more than that. He needs to be a real weapon on the defensive side of the ball. All right, guys, leave your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. Hey, I like Nolan Smith a lot, but you're going to need to describe to me, if you're the coaching staff, how do you plan on utilizing this player? This is a very unique one. You got to be careful of the way that you're describing what his role is going to be within your system. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. I'll see y'all in the next video.